guys, welcome back here to the dev realm, and today we're going to be talking about save game. How can you save a game? How can you load your game? How can you do this in Unreal Engine? So for those who doesn't know, the Absolute Beginner series is just a series of courses where I go and explain basic features and basic concepts of video games so you can use it on your games. But the aim here is just to make it simple as possible so you can get up to speed in less than 10 minutes. So I see you guys in the next video. Hi guys, so let's go here. Let's start with our saving game, right? So I'm using the Unreal Engine, just the 3D default theme, right? If you've been following the series, you probably have that one already. I'm just gonna press play here. You see that I have just a default character. Okay, right, so first thing I want to do here is I'm gonna create a new folder called save game, and in here I'm gonna store all my blueprints and whatever I need for my saving game, right? So I'm gonna right click in here, and what you're gonna create here is something called you're gonna create a blueprint class, but you're gonna search for save game. Okay, and now I'm gonna call this BP save game. Okay, actually I'm just gonna call to a better name, like base save game or something like this. You can call whatever you want as long as it makes sense what it is doing the class, right? So let's open up this class here, and then in here we're gonna create a variable that will store this information for the player. So you're gonna create a variable that will hold the player location. And we're going to create two functions, one that will store the information and another one that will actually load that information. Okay, so to do this, really simple, we're going to go in here on variables. We're going to create here player location. Okay, this is going to be a vector. You can make it public if you want. Yeah, let's make it public. This, as I told before, you can make it public or private depending on how you want to access this. At this moment, I'm not really sure if I'm gonna need to have this variable public, so we can always change this after. So on functions here, I'm gonna create two functions. The first one here is gonna be save, and the other one here is going to be load. Okay, and the load function here, if I open up the load function, I will get this, and I will return, and I'm just gonna plug this. Okay, so the load function will just return the player information, and then the save function I will just do like this and store the player information. This is very simple. It's nothing complicated. It's a very simple logic. So just once again, create a load function that I will return this value, and on the save, I will save this to a variable inside my my loading class. Okay, nice. So let's use this in game. So you can close this for now. Okay. Now what we're gonna do here is we're gonna open up the character. I'm gonna open up here the third person, the blueprints. We're gonna open up the character here, and don't need to worry about this. This is part of another tutorial. I'm just gonna delete this for now. And what I'm gonna do here is when the player press a certain key on my keyboard, right, it will save and it will load. Right, so let's do these keys first. So first of all, I'm gonna call the method here input key, and then let's select a key that we can use. So V and input key C. Do I have any C key? Yeah, there you go. All right. So let's do here the V to save. So I'm just gonna do a printing here just to test if this works. So saving, and we're gonna align that, and on the C here we're gonna do loading. Okay, press play. Oh, there's an error there. Let me just, don't worry about this. This is just because it was part of another tutorial. Let me just go back in here. Right, so I'm gonna compile and save, and let's see what it does. So if I press V, I have saving. If I press C, I have loading. Great. Right, so how do we implement the logic of saving and loading? Right, there's many ways you can do it. Usually, those kind of stuff you do want to create, you do want to handle on the player controller. You don't want to handle this on the player palm. But because we don't have a controller, we're just gonna do in the player palm. But it's literally is the same logic, but you probably would replicate that on a player controller level, right? Right, so to save, what we're gonna do here is we're gonna call a node here called save game slot. Right, so this will basically ask us a slot name, the index, that is something that you don't need to worry about too much for now. And this is gonna also ask us for the save game object. Okay, so of course that we don't have any save game object at the moment, but this actually asks us for a reference of this save game object. Right. Alright, so after you guys have created this save game slot, we need to create this object here. Okay, so the way we could do this, we can call another node called create save game object. Okay, because this asks for object. The reason why we have to create a save game object is because this object here, if you open up that again, as you can see, it extends from this class save game, and the save game is not really a actor it can spam. So if you try to do something like, I don't know, span actor from class, and then you try to select this class here, the base, it won't work because they are completely different classes. But okay, let's go back here. So okay, we are creating a save game, and then we are now plugging this here, and there's a couple of parameters that we still need to add here just to make sure that everything works fine. So the first one here, as you can see, is selecting a class. What class do you want to do here? So the class I want to do is just the BP save game. Okay, and now everything will work. It will create the save game. Let's just to give you an example, if I call this slot here save game 01. Okay, compile and save. If I press play, and then I press here V, yeah, press V. Okay, we still need to put some kind of a feedback. And now if you go to your Unreal Engine project here, tutorial, we're gonna go here to saved, save games, you're gonna have the data there. Okay, just to give you an example of what that data looks like. So if I open up this in VS Code here quickly, we're gonna see a bunch of stuff that doesn't make much sense, but basically this is just the Unreal Engine way of serializing your data. Okay, you see that Unreal Engine blah blah blah. We're gonna see more information as we save here. Right, so okay, I'm gonna do this file here. Let's go back to the editor. Right, so how can you actually put data inside? Right, if you remember, we have created a couple of functions in there. One is called save, the other one is called load. Okay, so we need to somehow use that information to be able to process data, right? So when I'm saving data here, let's call the save function, and the save function is asking for a parameter, and that parameter is a vector. Okay, which is gonna be our character location. So we're just gonna get a reference of self, and we're gonna get actor location, and now I'm gonna plug this here. Okay, nice. Okay, that's done, and right now this will save the player location. Right, let's see if that works. So if I let's load the game here first, and then we can see if this works. I'm just gonna create here a quickly print here, just to make sure that we know that's saving. Save, right? And now I'm gonna copy and paste. Yeah, there you go. Go loading here. Okay, so we know how to save data. Okay, but how can we get that data back? right? So I'm just gonna comment this. So if you guys don't know how to create comments, you just press C on your keyboard, or you just select the whole selection here and you come and create a comment from selection, right? And I'm gonna call this just save game, right? And there we go. Now in here, when I want to load the game, I need to somehow access this object that it was currently saved here, right? So the way you do this is you call load game, okay? And the one we want to use here is the load asynchronous from the game slot, right? So for those who doesn't know what is a asynchronous function or something, it's basically is a function that will execute, and only when everything is completed we can do some kind of a logic, right? So this function will pass here, but only when it's completed we want to trigger our logic. Because imagine if you have a very complicated game that you need to load a bunch of information. If your game is not, if all the data is not available to you, you can't load that data, right? Okay. Now this thing's gonna ask for a slot name, and we do have one here called save game 01. Okay, so I'm gonna copy and paste here, or we could do even better. We could create a variable called slot name. Yeah, that sounds perfect. And I am gonna plug those two variables in here. Okay, compile and save. So then in this way, I just change in one place how I want my slot to be called. Okay. Nice. So right now, once it's completed, we can do stuff with this object. Okay. If I press, for example, play, compile and save. So I'm gonna press V to save, and I'm gonna press C. You see that I have BP base game 04, 05, and so on and so forward, right? But we don't do anything with this data at the moment. We don't handle, we don't load the player location, we don't do absolutely nothing with it. So the way we can do that is we need to cast this to something that we can actually use. And I know that I told in the previous lesson where we had the interface discussion thing. For this specific case, you do want to cast this because there's ways you can actually do an interface with this, but the long story short is, especially with save games, is not a lot of information. I mean, it is a lot of data to load, but it's pure data, so you do need to have the best information, the true information of the structure you're trying to load. Okay, so let's do this. So we gonna call the method cast to BP base save game. Okay, that's the one we want to use it, but we don't want to use this arrow. We only want to cast it once it's complete. Okay, and now we have access to this function called load. Okay, so let's call the function here load, right? For those who are getting a little bit lost, when you cast it, this return blueprint that you can see here is the reference of this blueprint. Okay, when I say a reference, I have access to everything that this class have. So I have access to the methods, I have access to the functions, I have access to the variables, and a bunch of, and so on and so forth, right? So if I press play now, sorry, I'm just gonna debugging here. I'm just gonna press play, but I wanna print here what's the information that this is bringing up, right? So if I save my game now, okay, saved, and then I press C, do you see that we have a bunch of X, Y, and Z? So if I load this data again, that data change. You see, that is changing, which is great. Cool. So now how can we load the player position? This is something, I'm not sure if you've done this before, but okay. So the way we actually can load the player position is really simple. So we're gonna get a reference from the player here. Yeah. And we're gonna call a method called set actor location. Okay. Yeah. And now the location here will be the output that you loaded at. In this case, you do want to use teleport, so it loads everything faster. So if I press play and I press C, my character location has been automatic loaded. Yeah. So for example, if I come back in here, I press V, and then I come in and jump, boom. If you untick the teleport, I think what it does like a, yeah. The teleport is basically, it literally teleports the play straight away. If you don't do this, it will actually kind of a drag and drop your player very fast in a way that you don't realize. But yeah. And pretty much that's it, guys. That's how you create save games on Unreal Engine. And right now, what you could do in here, you know, like if you follow the previous lessons, you can just pass more parameters in this variable. You could even pass restructuring here. And then you could load that information in that, and then you could create, you know, carry your player's health, items, and all sorts of things. So Unreal Engine really makes stuff really easy to learn. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson, and I see you in the next one.